Hey YouTube. A lot of people seem to like the Audulus video from last week, so by popular demand and at the request of my patrons, I am going to further develop this patch that we built, which is this interesting drone. I've kind of tidied things up here, and it's doing lots of interesting stuff now on the sides. Let's put in more things into this and actually create a patch that's going to fully generate an interesting ambient album. It's going to have kind of a darker tinge to it, but I think it'll be enjoyable for everybody. So while we've got all this going off on the sides, I'm going to use something sort of similar to Car+ strong string synthesis to give us strings in the center. And before I get into that, I want to thank Mark Boyd, the guy who does the official tutorials for Audulus. He was a really good technical consultant on this, so he's getting a technical consultant credit on this video. And you should check out his channel if you haven't already seen those. He's got very specific little 2-minute tutorials on doing tasks in Audulus, and he makes use of the modules here that I'm completely ignoring because I like my nodes. So to get started with this Car+ strong synthesis is you take a noise source and then you run it through a filter and then you run it through a delay. But I'm going to do my own kind of style on that because I really like the way that the delay that's built in here works, and I found a way to play with that in a pretty unique manner. So first off, I'm going to try to keep things tidy here by making a sub patch and throwing in a noise. And as you may expect, it sounds like noise. And in the DSP, there's a high pass and a low pass filter. And if you run your noise into that high pass and then into the low pass, you're now basically band passing. So you're not hearing anything right now because I haven't given it any alpha, but if I put in a knob here, you get noise that you can shape. So that is going to be super handy. Now let's rename this knob color. And we're going to spell color without a superfluous U. And now we can take an output of this and throw this at a delay. Let me get rid of this speaker altogether. And quickly... Oh, damn it. Edit UI. All right, we got our color, we got our output. And we lock that UI now. So let's create another sub patch that's going to contain the delay. And we're going to need an input to bring in our noise that we're shaping and an output to pump out our resulting audio and the actual delay itself. Make those connections real quick here and pop out to bring in, oh, got to edit that now. The input over here, the output over there. And now I'm going to lock the UI and bring in our noise. And if I put in a speaker at the end of this, you're hearing our noise through the delay. And this delay that's built into Audulus is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us on this project because it's already got a built-in feedback thing, which we can screw around with by tweaking the time. So that's, you hear that texture that we're getting there. It's a very stringy, sort of nylon-y kind of sound. And you can get weird results by playing with that. And you get even weirder results when you're playing with that with a whole bunch of these delays in series. So let's build something that's going to play with that for us. Let me turn off the noise so that doesn't get annoying. And let's go back into our patch that's creating our noise and we're shaping the noise. And let's now make a way to screw around with that time. The simplest way to do that is going to be with a oscillator, so that with the sine wave, it's going to go up and down. And in this episode, I'm going to teach you the most important algorithm you need to know for Audulus, which is x divided by 2 plus amplitude divided by 2. And that is going to do magical things for you. So if we give this an amplitude of 0.02, and we give it a hertz, a frequency of something really, really slow, in this case, like 0.1, we'll probably screw around with that later. But that's giving us a little sign that's going up plus 0.02, and then it goes down negative 0.02. And we don't want it to ever go into the negative when it's going into the time, because that's looking for a value between 0 and 1. If we give it a negative value, it's not doing anything. So in order to keep this as a unipolar, just going between 0 and our maximum amplitude, we just use this super simple math expression here of x divided by 2 plus, and our amplitude was 0.02. So we take our amplitude that we were giving this LFO of 0.02 and divide that to get 0.01. And now you can see this better if I put it in a meter. This over here is going into the negatives, and it's going really, really slow. It's going too slow for me to demonstrate. Let me speed this up. All right, so now it goes down in the negatives, and then it goes up to 0.02, and then it goes back down. But this math here is going to keep it always in the positive range. So you see it comes back down, and it stops zero-ish. So that's perfect, right? That's going to be great in our time thing. Let me slow this down now, because I don't want it to be too chaotic. And we're going to name this output. I hate when I do that. I've been using this keyboard long enough, I should be able to hit keys on it. This is our noise, and this is our out, CV out. CV stands for control voltage and is a common phrase for any voltage that's going to control a modulation destination. It's not really applicable here, but I'm going to use the term anyhow. And now we're going to create inputs specific for that CV. So create an input CV input. And an output, because remember, we're going to have multiple of these delay units. So take the CV, now it's going out. So this can follow along into the next module. Let me now edit this to look cool. God damn it. All right. Oh, shit, I forgot to rename that one. CV out. All right. So if I take the CV in now and reconnect our audio output, you see that we get this blue thing here where it's screwing with the time, but it's only screwing with the time just a little bit right now. In fact, it's going to be like imperceptible because it's also doing it at this really, really slow amount. But if we increment the amount that it's doing it to each one of the delays so that all of the delays aren't being affected at the same time, they're slightly offset, it's going to be really cool because that's how you get different tonality. So if I take a math module here and just increment this up by 0.01, right now you hear it's at a specific peak and it's changing the tone. So when you've got a whole bunch of these in series, it's really interesting to have that different tonality across different notes or pitches. So now, if I take this CV out and I plug it into an exact copy of this, the next one is going to take that increment and increment it even further. So, oh, whoops, I don't want to do that. There we go. So now this little blue bit is higher than that little blue bit by just a little bit. So, if we now get crazy with this and start copying out a whole bunch of these, the output of all this is going to sound nuts. Oh, God damn it, I keep on trying to use that as the left. So now this little blue bar at the sixth one is way bigger than out at the first. Let me make sure I've got all my connections correct here. It looks like one of them is off. Yeah, damn it. Okay. That should be there. And that should be there. All right, there's the crazy I was looking for. I think you'll agree that is very stringy. We can go back to our noise and kind of shape the tonality of it like that. If you want, you could actually plug this LFO into that color. I like having manual control over that because for the most part this is going to be writing itself, but I want to have some knobs to play around with. So rather than letting it just do this kind of droning thing, because we've already got a drone, we don't need another drone. Let's add in a level and we'll modulate this with an ADSR. So let's make another sub module and use an ADSR here, envelope. And we're going to use the output from this to control that level knob. And we need a gate. Something that's going to trigger that to go through its whole process. Let me use a trick that I like. I like random things. Like for this whole ambient thing, I want it to be random. So I don't want a sequencer that's going to hit a specific note every single time. I want it to be occasionally it's going to hit that gate and it's going to do its thing. And remember that the thing that it's going to do is already being modulated by this LFO that's changing the times of everything. So we're going to get a random tone, and we want it to hit at a random time. And since we're using this very specific sound, I think that's actually going to sound good to have a random tone at a random time. So to create the random time is tricky. But let me show you how I have found an interesting way of doing this. If we take our random thing, and remember in the last episode, it's moving super, super fast. by the way, I should point out, the reason I'm having a hard time dragging things is sometimes it works when I drag it diagonally, and sometimes it does not work when I drag it diagonally. You see, that was the same exact diagonal stroke. To use these correctly, you're supposed to go up, but oh my god, that one didn't work. Fuck it. Maybe it just probably is the recording software I'm using, but anyhow, the random is too fast. If we threw this at that gate, it's just going to be just a mess. So we want to slow this way down. And we're going to use the same method we used last time, where we'll take a square oscillator that's running relatively slow, and it's giving us a value of 1. And we're going to use this to trigger a sample and hold. And now we're going to get a much slower number generator thing here. But throwing this into the gate isn't going to work on its own, because the gate expects to have any number greater than 0 to trigger, and then it needs a 0 to stop triggering so that it can trigger the next time. So we can use a muxer here. And what the muxer will do is send whatever input is at these inputs based on the selector. So if let's make a value here. Let's say that when it's selecting for 4, give it 0.5. So whenever, I can show you here with a meter now. Right now it's giving me a 0, but if I give this selector a 4, it's going to pump out a 0.5. So let's take our random number here and multiply it by 10 to get up into the range that that's expecting. And now it's cycling up through this number, and let's pay attention to this because it's going to hit that eventually. There's the 0.5. So when it hits that, it's going to sound our gate. And it's going to send it through. You can watch that number here to see when that's going to trigger. Another way, if it's not happening often enough, you could either increase the speed of the LFO, but that's going to increase the time, or let me rephrase that. The speed of the LFO is not just affecting how often it's going to trigger. It also, as you see there, as soon as it hits 0, it also shuts off the gate, so that then it goes into its release phase. We can kind of account for that by giving it a hell of a lot of release. But if you want it to sound more often but not get shut off too quickly, you can just say, okay, trigger on different numbers, like give me a 7, maybe a 2. So whenever a number below 6 and it's like between 7 and 6, so that's when we'll get the in 7. It's still not happening though. Oh my god, this is upsetting me. It's a random thing and it just gave me 2 2s in a row. There we go. And you can now shape this because this is just acting as a simple ADSR for a VCA, a amplifier. So right now it's stuck in a really long phase here. Why is it stuck? Is it that release? Wait, why is it 0.9? Okay, let's not use the in 7, because that was taking 9s and saying that was an on. Is the 2 the problem here? Okay, it stopped triggering on 9s because it's giving me a hell of a lot of 9s. So we can now shape this just like we would any other synthesizer, where when it triggers, it'll go through this attack, decay, and sustain phase and into the release. So if we curb this down, we're getting kind of a plucky sound. And if we give it some attack, it's going to swoop a little. And if we give it some release, I think it's going to sound good with, you know, a little extra time at the end when it hits the 0. We got to give it a little bit more release than that. Yeah, it's got a little tail now. So that's kind of an interesting thing. You can change the volume and intensity of all this. Like, you can change all of that by changing this number right here. So if we give this now a 1, it'll be more aggressive. When it triggers, gotta wait for that random. Man, random is not working with me. All right, so that's pretty good. But we've built all these modules. We can now reuse them in new and interesting ways. So let's take the first 3 modules here and this color shaper. And if we copy them over here... Oh, damn it. I hate when it does that. Okay, there we go. We can now do an entirely different thing that's got a different color to the noise and a different algorithm for the intensity. So let's take our... I'm going to take that level... All right. Let me disconnect this one so you can hear specifically what I'm doing over here. Give it a little bit more volume so you can hear it as I change it. So obviously the first thing we can do differently... Oh, you know what? Is that noise going into the wrong thing? Shit, it is. Which means it's probably on the wrong thing here. Okay. So we can change the noise, or we can change this algorithm that's affecting the amplitude. Because remember, this little 0.02, well, that is crazy for just being 3 of those. This little 0.02 is just moving that first delay just a little bit. But if we dramatically change this, we're going to get entirely different results the whole way down the line. Because remember, we're incrementing everything. So if we give this 0.08, oh yeah, and remember that you've got to change this with each increment change, so half of that is 0.04. That's kind of interesting. You could also say, I really like it in this one range and I want to keep it closer to that range. And then take that number, like figure out what that number is that you like, and then add this to that rather than having this go down up and down this whole 0.08. Just say, move a little bit, but start at 0.08. So let's try that. Change this back down to 0.02. And this to 0.01. But now we're going to add an explicit boost at the beginning of all of this to say go up by 0.06. And there, that did get a little bit more this shimmer that I was looking for. It's a here, maybe you can hear the difference like this. Bad example, but there is a little bit of a difference there. So now that's staying on the richer, grittier sound, whereas this one was less so. So now they're kind of complementing each other. At least that's what I'm going for. That random is totally fucking with me. It is not randoming enough. No, wait, no. If I just give it all these numbers, it's going to get stuck. Alright, here, let me try that. Because we do want it to hit some of these numbers that I don't have a connection to, so it gets 0 and turns off the envelope. That does sound like that helped by just changing one of the numbers. But now it is stuck up. Alright. Let's move back over here to this other one now. This is getting too drony. Remember, we've got the other drone that we're trying to balance this with. And this is going to be too drony if this stays constant. I really, really love that initial drone. But let's add some variation in on this one. Let's make this our CV out one and add another way to screw with that. And for this one, we can use that algorithm we were using before with the LFO, where we take the... Now let me set this how much do I want this to be moving around? Well, basically, I think I want to do the same thing that I'm doing with the time, where I set it at a level, then I want it to wobble around. Let's start off here, and we'll tweak it from there. The amplitude, I want it to cycle about half of the maximum volume. And so we'll take our math expression here and set it to x divided by 2 plus half of that is 0.25. So try to remember that. I hate doing math on these videos, but this is a really important one. It will keep, the bipolar thing in a much more useful unipolar direction. So that if we plug this straight in after we edit this, we can see it. It's going all the way down to the bottom and then coming up halfway. But I think that was the first one. Yeah, that's the first one that did that. We turn off our first drone so we can hear very specifically what the strings are doing. I like that. So we're getting this random note from this first one. Like, I'm going to call it a note. It's a pitch that it's giving us that's got this very unique character. Every single time it's slightly different. And it's happening whatever. And we've got that married with a much more predictable thing that your ear is going to hear and be used to with this swooping in thing. Although I think that it needs to come up a little bit. So I'm going to, once again, cheat here and give it a base starting value. So it'll never go below 0.2. And that'll increase the amplitude of the whole thing just a little bit. I like that. Yeah, it's a little bit fuller now. And let's hear that all together with the drone. I think that one, the first one's coming a little too high with 0.1, so let's try calming that down to 0.7. That's a little too low. Let's try 0.8. It's all just a matter of finding how you want this to sound. Like, I'm showing you how I want this to sound. You can screw around with so many different things in here to figure out how you want it to sound. And it all comes down to thinking about your modulation sources, which we've conveniently placed in these things, and how you tweak the knob or how you tweak the LFOs. You can create your own sonic palette with this, just using this technique as a technique rather than taking what I'm doing as verbatim. So it's cool to play around. Like, do your homework, play around with this, and do this, and you'll understand these connections. And I think you're going to have a lot of fun with this, because Carpless Strong is really great for that kind of not really organic, kind of alien sort of texture thing. It's a lot of fun. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you very much to all my Patreon patrons for making these possible and suggesting that I continue this. I'm planning, I think I'm going to do a third video where I'm going to bring in some bells from hell. I've got some ideas for that. To go along with our strings and our drones, I think some bells are going to be a nice complement to this thing. And then I'll have us actually creating a whole album. Thank you very much. Take it easy, guys. One thing that you can get into here is playing around with the spread of this. So as you notice right now, it's just a little green line, but I can make it a really big green line. That's where that resynthesis is coming in. It's spreading out the harmonics so that the distance between the partials is greater, and you can control how many partials you have with this. So if I take it all the way down to 1, we're just going to get 1 sine wave. If I can't do craft work with it, I'm not going to try to do anything like that. So let's just clear that out and give it a vowel. And now I'm going to use this vocal synth. Instead of making it say stupid stuff, I'm going to make it a big boomy pad. So let me start off